Hey guys, tonight we slip into the rough, wind-battered boots of a Mongol nomad. You're not a famous Khan or horseback warlord, not yet. Anyway, you're just you. And your life, it's hard. Brutal winds whip across the plains. The sun scorches you raw by day and frostbite nips at your nose by night. Your home is a felt-covered yurt that flaps and groans with every gust. You sleep beside your family, your sheep, your yak dung stove, and hope you don't freeze before dawn. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe it only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, wrapped in the itchy embrace of a horsehair blanket. Your breath fogs in front of your face. It's early spring, and the snow outside your yurt has started to melt, except not really, because this is Mongolia, where spring means ice in the morning, sunstroke by noon, and a dust storm in the afternoon. You push open the felt flap of your home and step into wind so sharp it feels like it has teeth. You're already wearing 4 layers of animal skin, but somehow it still sneaks into your bones. The sky is painfully clear, no clouds to soften the sun, which will soon turn your yurt into an oven and your sheepskin coat into a personal sauna. Climate here isn't just challenging, it's bipolar. You've got desert steppes, mountain winds, and temperature swings so brutal they make your teeth ache. Historians still argue whether this intense environment helped forge Mongol resilience or just weeded out the weak before they could grow up. Probably both. You trudge toward your herd, which isn't where you left it last night. Of course not. Half your goats wandered up the hill again, and 2 of your yaks are trying to hump a bush. You squint against the wind and start yelling, your voice already hoarse from yesterday's round of screaming at sheep. Still, you have to move fast. The sun is rising, and it won't be long before your coat turns against you. Your clothing is designed to trap body heat, great for night. Not so great when the steppe becomes a solar grill. There's a trick you learned from your grandfather. Sweat as little as possible. Once you're wet in this climate, you're doomed. It'll either freeze on your skin or trap you in a sticky, steaming mess. You think about water, but there's no stream nearby. You'll have to melt some snow or milk your mare, both of which take effort you don't have. So, you chew on a piece of dried mutton and hope it distracts you from your chapped lips. Meanwhile, your younger sibling has crawled out of the yurt wearing only socks and one of your boots. He immediately falls into a patch of half-frozen dung and starts crying. You sigh. That's going to be your problem now. Again, you might think being surrounded by family in a tight-knit community is warm and comforting. And it is, until they all need something at once. Fix the yurt flap, milk the goats, chase off the wolves, watch the kids. Sew the coat, and if you're lucky, eat last. There's no school, no market. Every moment of your life is weather-dependent, livestock-dependent, and utterly unpredictable. You dream of rain because it means grass. You dread rain because it means mud. You love the sun until it cracks your lips open like dry leather. And sleep, don't get too attached. The yurt walls don't keep out wind or noise, and the stove dies out by midnight. You huddle near it anyway, sharing heat with your dog, your brother, and a sack of fermented mare's milk that smells like socks soaked in vinegar. By the way, fermented mare's milk aragas, not optional. It's tradition, it's hydration. It's the only drink that won't make your stomach explode after a few hours. Unless it does. Then you just roll with it. In the distance, you hear a howl, not a wolf too high-pitched. That's your neighbor's baby. They'll come over later to borrow salt and complain about the wind knocking their yurt sideways. Again, you glance at the horizon and spot a blur. Dust kicked up by hooves. Riders. Could be traders. Could be bandits. Could be cousins coming to ask for help with a sick camel. You never know, and there's no phone to warn you. Mainstream fact. The Mongol Empire eventually became the largest contiguous land empire in history. But long before the glory and conquest came, there's you, freezing at dawn and sweating by lunch, just trying to survive without falling off your horse. And, quirky tidbit, some Mongol children learned to ride horses before they could walk. Saddle before sandals, galloping before crawling. You look at your own wobbly-kneed toddler and sigh. He's already falling behind. But for now, the wind shifts again. Colder, this time. Storm coming. You grab your cloak, yell at your brother to drag the goats back, and tighten the ropes on the yurt. Survival, as always, is a full-time job with no weekends. The wind is still howling, and now it carries smoke. Not the sharp, panic-inducing kind, just the daily aroma of someone trying to cook breakfast without setting the yurt on fire. You duck inside your own home, if you can call it that. A low, circular structure made of bent wooden slats, thick felt, and schist. It's called a garor yurt, if you're trying to sound fancy to foreigners. Inside, it's dark and warm, in the way an overused sleeping bag is warm. The smoke from the dung-fueled stove floats just under the roof, and you have to crouch as you move to avoid coughing like a haunted chimney. It's not deadly. Probably just enough to make your eyes water and your voice raspy until lunchtime. Your grandmother is already awake and stirring something in a pot. You ask what it is. She says, milk, without turning. You ask what else. She shrugs. That's the whole menu. Welcome to breakfast in the steppe, lukewarm, slightly sour, and served with a side of ash. Your younger brother tries to sneak the crusty edge of last night's Your grandmother whacks him with a wooden ladle. It's an ancient ritual, part sustenance, part survival, part slapstick. You sit near the stove, trying to find the one warm spot that isn't smoky. Good luck. Smoke rises, but also seems to zigzag in defiance of physics, always aimed directly at your face. Historians still argue whether the design of the gear was genius or tortured brilliant in mobility but miserable in daily life. And let's talk privacy, or the complete lack of it. You live, sleep, and do pretty much everything in a 15-foot circle with your extended family. If someone's chewing too loud, you hear it. If someone snores, you hear it. If someone dares to pass gas in their sleep, you guessed it. There are no rooms, no doors, just partitions of hanging fabric that do absolutely nothing except pretend to separate spaces. If you're a teenager dreaming of secrets or solitude, good luck with that. Even whispering gets overheard, usually by an uncle who's pretending to sleep but lives for gossip. You try to change clothes under your blanket. Your mum walks in. She doesn't care. No one does. Modest. Cute idea. Not practical when everyone's been crammed into a felt cocoon for most of the winter. And the layout, the stove is dead center, because that's tradition and warmth. The men's tools go to the left, women's tools to the right. The altar, yes, a literal altar faces the entrance, with offerings to Tengri, the sky god, nestled among family heirlooms and a few lucky goat bones. Feng shui this is not. You head out again because, frankly, it's better than breathing tar. The wind outside is cold, but at least it's honest. Inside the gear, the warmth tricks you until your lungs beg for mercy. But your chores aren't done. The felt walls of the yurt need every gust of wind tests the ropes, and if they loosen, your whole home might roll away. Literally, that's not a joke, it happened. Your cousin once chased their yurt for half a mile before it wedged into a ravine. You check the anchor stones. Still solid. Then notice your baby sister licking one of them. Again, you sigh. If she doesn't grow up immune to every bacteria known to man, it'll be a miracle. Time to fetch more dung. That's your fuel-dried animal poop. Not glamorous, but effective. You pick up the cracked, brittle patties and stack them in a basket. You've done this so many times. You can now tell which animal made which patty by texture alone. Congratulations. You're a poop connoisseur. Back inside, your uncle is trying to repair a saddle using a needle that looks older than the concept of sewing. Your grandmother is humming a song that no one remembers the words to. Your dad is asleep with one hand still clutching his boots. It's cozy. Yes, it's also suffocating. Literally. Quirky fact. The average ger had no chimney until recent centuries. All that smoke just lived with you. Kind of like an extra relative who never bathes and always eats the last dumpling. You think about leaving, about riding off into the hills and sleeping under the stars. But the truth is, the ger is home. It's miserable, yes, but it's movable. It's yours. And during a blizzard, there's no better place to be. Suddenly, the wind outside changes tone. A howl, but sharper. Wolves, or just a trick of the landscape. You instinctively grab a sling. In this part of the world, the walls of your home are never thick enough to ignore the outside for long. And there's the baby crying again. You hand your mum a goat hide rattle. It doesn't help. The crying echoes off the walls like a symphony of chaos. You consider crawling into the yakka hair pile and pretending to be asleep, but no one would believe it not when there's still a hole in the roof flap. Your uncle needs his boots, and the stove's gone cold. Outside, someone calls your name. Time to fetch water from the stream before it freezes solid. Again, inside, the smoke thickens. You breathe in, coughed twice, and step out into the cold. At least here, the misery has a view. You're halfway to the stream when your stomach growls like an angry steppe wolf. Unfortunately, there's nothing exciting waiting for you back at camp. Just more meat or more milk. Possibly both. Mongol cuisine doesn't have a wide repertoire. It's strictly survival fare. Whatever your animals produce, you eat. And they mostly produce fat, milk, and meat. Breakfast was fermented maize milk. Lunch will probably be boiled mutton. Dinner, boiled mutton's second cousin boiled goat. And every dish, from porridge to stew, is served with a dash of smoke and a sprinkle of hair. Because, no matter how careful you are, yurt cooking is never hair-free. You finally fill your leather water bag well, more like a stretched sheep bladder, and it tastes faintly of leather, iron, and regret. There's no filtration, no boiling unless you want to waste precious dung fuel. You drink it because you have to, and you've built up a caste over time, sort of. Back home, your mother's making bozo fried dough puffs. You're excited for a second, until you remember they've been made from the same dough for days in a row. They're hard enough to chip a tooth and bland enough to make sand taste interesting. Still, they're warm, and that counts for something. You sit cross-legged, chewing carefully so you don't alosia mola. The fermented mare's milk is fizzy, slightly sour, and just alcoholic enough to make your uncle dance, off-key after 3 cups. You sip slowly. 1 gulp too many, and you'll be galloping for the latrine bush in 10 minutes. Dietary diversity, forget about it. Vegetables are rare and usually dried fruit. Only if they survive the journey from China, and even then, you're last in line. Your gut is trained to handle dairy, fat, and maybe a wild onion if you're lucky. Historians still argue whether the Mongols' near-complete absence of fiber was impressive resilience, or just a digestive cry for help. And here's the real kicker: Mongols didn't need all their livestock. They couldn't. Cows were too valuable for milk, horses for travel, sheep for wool. Killing them for meat was like setting your tractor on fire because you're hungry. So instead, you learned to live off what the animals gave you, not just what they were. That meant drinking blood, piercing a vein in your horse's neck, catching a cupful, and sealing it up again. A quick source of protein and iron when times were lean. You've never done it, but you've seen it. And honestly, you'd probably choose blood over cold, congealed, goat fat, any day. Your little sister offers you a curd snack -AARU. It's rock hard sour, and has the texture of a dried sponge that's been abandoned in the sun. But it's a delicacy, passed around like candy. Mongol kids chew on these things, like modern kids chew bub. You take one, and pretend it doesn't make your molars scream. And here's a fringe tidbit. Some Mongol warriors were known to store fat in their saddlebag as just globs of it because it wouldn't spoil quickly and they could eat it raw on the march. Imagine pulling out a greasy wad of sheep fat better than trail mix, maybe. Your cousin drops by with a treat. Boiled intestines stuffed with milk curds and fat. You eat politely, even as your brain whispers, why? And your stomach clenches in preparation. Everyone insists it's good for strength and occasional hallucinations, depending on the freshness. After eating, you try to nap, but digestion isn't easy when everything feels like it was cooked with vengeance. Your stomach bubbles ominously. You lie on your back, eyes on the felt ceiling, and wonder what a salad would taste like, or even just a tomato. Outside, someone is chopping ice. Not for a drink, no, that luxury doesn't exist. It's for melting, for cooking, for keeping the animals hydrated. Clean water is precious. You remember the time you dropped a bucket and it cracked open on a stone. You cried not for the bucket, but for the wasted water. Later, you'll help your grandmother churn more milk. The process involves shaking a giant leather sack suspended by ropes. You do it for what feels like years. Eventually, it turns into something vaguely resembling cheese. It smells like gym socks, but it's yours. You call it sustenance. Outsiders call it a mistake. You dream of rice, of spices, of anything not derived from another. You once heard of people in China eating dumplings filled with herbs, green things that grow in the ground, wild stuff. But you also know this diet makes you strong, lean, durable. You rarely get sick, and when you do, you just chew more garlic and drink salty tea until the fever runs, or you do. There's no pharmacy, no doctor, just fire, broth, and belief. A neighbor's child has been vomiting all morning. Some say evil spirits. Some say bad milk. You say maybe both. You offer leftover broth and a bit of a... Not helpful, but it shows you care. By evening, your father sharpens a knife and your mother folds the last of the cheesecloth. You curl up in the corner, belly still gurgling, and wrap yourself in a wool blanket that smells like smoke, milk, and a faint hint of horse. As your eyes close, you hear someone say, "Tomorrow we butcher the sheep." You feel a mix of dread and excitement. At least it'll be fresh. You just hope they save you the ribs. And maybe, just maybe, boil it long enough this time. Morning hits you like a cold slap. Your blanket has slid halfway off. The stove went out hours ago, and your fingers feel like they've been carved from yak bone. Someone's already outside yelling about the sheep again. You know the drill. No one eats until the herding's done. So you drag yourself up, toss on your stiffest coat, it's still damp from yesterday's snowstorm under. Step out into the rising sun. The wind has decided to change direction, just to keep things interesting. And the goat's gone. Again. You sigh. Every day begins with chasing hooved maniacs across the open steppe. You whistle, shout, wave your arms like a maniac, but the herd treats you like background noise. A few bleat and sprint the wrong direction. One particularly smug-looking ram glares at you before trotting downhill. This is your job, your life, endless herding. In summer, you guide them to graze. In winter, you dig for buried roots so they don't starve. In spring, you pray the babies survive the frost. And in fall, you try to fatten them up before the next cycle of freezing misery. Sometimes the animals are clever, sometimes they're just suicidal. Like the time your favorite goat wandered onto a frozen lake and broke through. You waded waist deep into ice water to pull it out. Worth it, probably. Still lost your boots. Your younger cousins follow you today, pretending they're warriors. They've whittled sticks into swords, and are now fighting invisible enemies, while accidentally scattering half the sheep. Great. That'll be another 2 hours of cleanup. One of them spots something on the horizon, a thin dark line slithering across the hill squalls. Or maybe just shadows. Hard to say at this distance, but you grip your sling tighter anyway. You've lost too many lambs to be careless. Predators are a constant threat out here. Wolves, yes. But also eagles, cold snaps, and human thieves. There are no fences on the steppe. Your animals are your wealth, your food, and your legacy, and you defend them like your life depends on it. Because it does. You whistle again. A few stragglers fall in line. You spot a lamb limping. Its leg is bent, likely stepped on by its own confused mother. You scoop it up and cradle it close. It smells like hay and wet wool and innocence. You name it something. Dumb dinner maybe, to keep yourself from getting attached. You always do anyway. A fringe practice some herders swear by. Singing. They hum low, steady tones to calm the animals as they move. You try it, and it kind of works. Your goats stop headbutting each other for a whole 3 minutes. A miracle. Historians still argue whether Mongol herding tactics were born of instinct, discipline, or just sheer honestly, it's all three. You know the land like a map drawn in muscle memory. You recognize hills by the way the wind moves across them. You predict rain by the smell of the clouds. You don't get a badge for that, but you do get to eat. You lead the herd back toward camp, careful not to let them trample your neighbor's drying hides. That earned you a fistful of curses last week. Mongol communities are close-knit, but quick to scold. And apologies here. Come with gifts or milk, sometimes both. As you tie off the lead goat near a boulder, you hear barking. Not your dog. It's sharper, wilder wolves. You grab your sling, load a smooth stone, and take aim at the rustling bushes. The noise stops. You don't see anything, but your heart thumps like a drumbeat in your ears. You leave a guard dog posted and rush back to camp to warn the others. Your father nods. They're testing us, he says. They'll be back at dusk. You sharpen your blade that evening with your back to the fire, trying not to think about how thin the yurt walls really are. Dinner is quiet. Everyone listens. You hear owls, then silence. No bells, no bleating. The herd is still. You and your uncle creep out with torches, walking past the outline of yurts and fire pits. Suddenly, a shape darts through the dark low farce, and gone. You launch a stone, miss, another blur. This time, the dog lunges and tackles it. A scream Canaan, not human, and nothing. You find one sheep dead, another limping. It could have been worse. The wolves were just testing your defenses. They'll return. Always do. You bury the sheep the next morning, or what's left of it. You don't name your animals anymore, but you remember their faces. You patch the fencing rope tied between stakes. It won't stop a determined predator, but it might slow them down. That's all you ever really do. Buy time, patch holes, survive one more day. You sit on a rock, rubbing your sore shoulder. You look at the wide, endless horizon, the clouds skimming across a sky that looks painted in shades of cold. You love this land. You hate it too. Your cousin brings you tea salted, of course. It's hot, comforting, and tastes like boiled sweat. But you drink it, because it's what you do. It's how you make it through. You scratch behind the ear of your loyal dog-scarred Smelly, and absolutely essential. He wags his tail and leans in. No words, just shared exhaustion. Tomorrow, you'll hurt again. Tomorrow, you'll chase more goats. Tomorrow, the wolves might come back. But for now, you're alive. You're full. You're tired. And that's enough. The sky's shifting no orange at the edges, wind rising, dust beginning to swirl low across the plains. You can feel something coming. It's not a storm, it's people. You hear the hoofbeats before you see them fast, coordinated, pounding like war drums across the brittle earth. Are they allies? Enemies? Or worse, family with bad news? Turns out it's a scouting party from another camp. One of the riders, an older man with a jaw like sun-baked rock, dismounts and greets your father with barely a nod. There's been a fight, he says. 2 valleys over a stolen ox. Your father grunts. Whose ox doesn't matter. One man's dead. The others are planning revenge. You sigh. So it begins. Life as a Mongol isn't just wrestling with wolves and windits, navigating the razor-thin line of tribal diplomacy. One wrong insult, one cow that wanders across the wrong border, one rumor whispered the wrong way and, boom, feud. Blood, sometimes, years of tension unravel with one arrow. You've seen it before. Fights over horses, grazing rights, women, even dreams. One elder once launched a vendetta because he dreamed his neighbor cursed his goat. Historians still argue whether Mongol justice was brutal necessity or chaos disguised as honor. It's probably both. Your family begins preparing, not for war exactly, but for demonstration. Your father grabs his bow, your uncle dons a tattered old armor vest part leather, part ego. You're tasked with fetching the good horses. You know which ones they're, the fast ones, the mean ones, the ones that never let you saddle them on the first try. As the sun sets, you find yourself brushing dust from your only knife. You're not going to battle probably, but you might have to show up and stand tall, which in Mongol terms means be ready to kill someone just in case. And this isn't new. This is how things are settled out here. Courts. What courts? You settle disputes with words, then gestures, then steel. Most times it ends in shouting and some poor soul getting trampled. Occasionally it ends in blood. There's a saying, an insult can ride faster than a horse. Once news spreads, it's out of your hands. You just try to survive the fallout. You remember your older cousin, the one who lost a hand in a skirmish over a bet on a horse race. The other guy lost his nose, but now every time they see each other they nod, like old war. Buddies' mutual suffering is the only truce. You head out with the other men before dawn, riding under the stars. You're not wearing armor, just your heaviest coat, a sling, and that knife. The grass crunches under hoof, the cold gnaws at your fingers. Your stomach turns, but not from fear. From the leftover fermented cheese you ate last night. You reach the neighboring camp by midday. It's tense. Men stand in groups, arms crossed, brows lowered. A goat bleats somewhere in the background, oblivious. You stay quiet. You're just a body someone to add presence. A debate begins. Loud, fast, circular, lots of gesturing. No one draws weapons. Yet, eventually, there's a compromise. The offending family gives up 3 sheep and 2 horses to the dead man's relatives. Balance. Blood for blood, meat for meat. It could have been worse. You all ride home in silence, dust trailing behind. One of the elders hums a tune that's half lullaby, half funeral dirge. You wonder if that was the right outcome, or if someone else will wake up tomorrow and decide it wasn't. That's the thing about justice here. It's not about laws. It's about reputation, strength, family, honor, and memory. Long memory. Your grandfather still talks about a feud from 30 years ago like it happened last week. A fringe tradition, spitting during handshakes. It seals a deal symbolically. Of course, you've done it before. It's weird. It's real. And if you refuse, it's like saying, I'll betray you later. You get back home and collapse on the ground. Not in defeat, just exhaustion. Your body aches from the ride. Your head from the tension. Your horse looks at you like it also needs a drink. Your mother hands you tea. Extra salty. We didn't lose anyone, she says. That's the best blessing you get here. You think about the campfires you saw, the faces, the look in their eyes. Everyone out here lives one bad decision away from chaos. That's the real fear, not wolves, not hunger, just the human tendency to snap. You look at your knife still clean. You tuck it away and breathe in the smoke of your yurt, grateful you didn't have to use it. This time, it's been 3 days since the feud was settled, and the camp has mostly returned to its usual rhythm, herding, milking, shouting at goats. You're starting to relax again, until the word comes. Scouts spotted smoke on the northern horizon. Strangers, and not the peaceful kind. You don't need anyone to explain what this means. Expansion, recruitment, maybe even conscription. Because the Mongol Empire didn't conquer half the known world with smiles and good manners. You gather around the central fire as your grandfather talks. He doesn't say much, just nods once and says, "It's time." You know what he means. Genghis Khan, or whichever local warlord carries his banner, now is summoning fighters, and every able-bodied man in your tribe is expected to ride. The preparations begin before sunrise. You dig out the old saddles, sharpen blades, patch your woolen coat with raw. There's a quiet intensity to the work. No one talks about fear, but everyone moves with urgency. You're not a warrior. Not really. You've killed wolves, chased thieves, wrestled livestock, but this riding off to join a campaign where the enemy speaks a different language, and the maps are just rumors, that's different. Your armor consists of layered leather, hardened by smoke and sweat. It smells like 1,000 campfires and the backs of terrified horses. Your bow, recurved and deadly, made from bone and sinew. You've trained with it since childhood, but mostly on targets that didn't scream. Historians still argue whether Mongol military discipline was unparalleled genius or pure brutality refined into an art. You'll soon find out which side they're on. Before departure, there's a farewell ceremony. Your mother ties a strip of blue cloth around your armor, symbol of the eternal sky. Come back under the same sky, she says. You nod, but your stomach churns. The commander is a stocky man with a jaw like a cliff and eyes that never blink. He gives orders in short bursts. You're told to ride light, bring no tents, only what you can carry. If you can't sleep on dirt, he growls, you're not ready to fight for it. The march begins at dawn. Dozens of you ride east, hooves pounding in rhythm. The wind is sharp. The sky feels too big. You fall into the trance of movement, hours of nothing but wind hooves, and occasional shouting when someone drops a pack. You sleep in open fields, curled beside your horse, using its warmth as a blanket. The ground is unforgiving. The stars, while beautiful, offer no comfort. On day 3, your group meets another clan, tougher, dustier, already bloodied from earlier raids. They trade stories like weapons, each one more gruesome than the last. You nod along, trying not to look like a child at a dinner table full of killers. One night, a warrior shares dried meat with you. It's chewy and tastes faintly of horse. You eat it anyway. He tells you a story about a man who rode from the Altai to the Black Sea without changing clothes. When he arrived, he says, grinning, his horse wept from the smell. Everyone laughs, even you. Quirky fact, some Mongol warriors slept in the fetal position beneath their horses for warmth and cover, believing the animal's scent would mask their own from enemies and animals alike. You try it. It works. Mostly, the smell takes days to leave your coat. The first battle is small, a border clash. You don't see much, just the chaos. Screaming, clashing, steel, arrows, blotting the sun. You fire your bow and think, maybe you hit someone, maybe not. It's over fast. You're still breathing. Others aren't. That night, the commander pats you on the back. You didn't run. That's enough. You return to camp weeks later, thinner. Your mother doesn't cry when she sees you. She just hands you tea and tells you to feed the goats, as if nothing happened. But everything has. The steppe looks the same. Your yurt smells the same. But you've seen beyond it now. You've eaten foreign food, heard foreign screams, and come back carrying ghosts you don't talk about. Some things haven't changed. The goats still escape. The stove still smokes. Your younger siblings still think you're a hero. You don't correct them. You lie down that night beside the same dented stove, under the same itchy blanket, and stare at the ceiling. You wonder how many yurts across the steppe hold men like you, tired, quiet, pretending the world is small again. The wind howls outside. You're home for now. Now, slow your breathing. Feel the rhythm of hoofbeats fading into silence. Picture the endless steppe beneath the night sky, stars glittering above folds of land shaped by time and thunder. You lie wrapped in wool, your limbs heavy, your thoughts like drifting clouds. The crackle of fire is soft now, just a whisper in the distance. The smoke has cleared, the cold air is calm, and your yurt, for once, is still. Let your mind wander far from hunger, far from war, from wolves and worry. You are a quiet breath in an ancient world, one voice among the wind. Sleep comes, easy and slow, and in that stillness, the steppe carries you gently into dreams.